The Board of Education makes available at least one current copy of the Open Meetings Act, which is posted on the west wall of the meeting room. And agenda.
Also, to excuse Brandon, Eric Book, and Marissa.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, first we're going to talk about, have a strategic planning site update, and first is the elementary with Mrs. Timmerman and Mr. Ford.
Please stand stretch.
Excuse me?
All right, because when we did our first one, we did an ABC book, we're gonna do a number book this time. So the 10 things that we've done to meet our strategic goal. So our goal was just to build a strong tier 1, both academically and behaviorally at the elementary school. We know that we're not going to change things unless we have best practices and good teaching and good habits within all of our classrooms at all times. So that was our goal, that we were gonna go from there. So, number 10. This is our top 10. There we go. So number 10 is we developed our school mission. So everything that we do is on our school mission and believing everyone succeeds. And if you know believing everyone succeeds, it's BES, Beatrice Elementary School, so it goes hand in hand. So that nice painting is above all of our windows so that everyone walks in every day and remembers that we believe everyone can succeed.
Number 9, Ms. Timmerman and the team did a ton of intentional planning last year to develop the updated schedule to guarantee that all students get Tier 1 instruction, and those are the guaranteed minutes that we get. 90 minutes of ELA, 60 minutes of math, and 30 minutes of win time, which stands for what I need. So.
We are doing lots of things in professional development. One is Get Your Teach On. So we brought the Get Your Teach On instructors to Beatrice last year. This next summer, I and some other teachers are going to them to learn better instructional practices. We know you can't do the same thing and teach via PowerPoint or your slides. You have to have engaging lessons in order to get kids' engagement up. So that's our goal in doing that.
And then at our last meeting, there was the purchasing of the high quality curriculum of CKLA. So adopting the new ELA curriculum, that is the central component, so teachers do not have to supplement, and there's equity for all students.
6 were the new math curriculum. The fun fonts did not transfer over. I'm so sad. It's hard, and that's what the teacher said at first, that it's hard. But now, some of our teachers that really were struggling with it at first are the first ones to say, I'm shocked how much further our kids are this year than last year. And it was challenging at first, but kids are getting it, and it's fun to see their progress. So have some of our teachers that were the biggest naysayers to now come back and say they get it, they understand, we're working the process, and it's working. It's exciting.
Our partnership in terms of professional development for our staff, Missy says this several times, and it's so true, just putting tools in our teachers' toolbox, just helping teachers be better teachers. So partnering with UNL for our literacy development in coordination with our curriculum adoption is going to be very, very impactful.
Spelling.
I did see that as, yep, thank you for pointing that out. I did see that. One thing about words is we kind of said that we were putting all of our eggs in a basket, and we weren't having great feedback from words. So we had the opportunity on Friday for, James and I are getting coaching as well. So we talked to our coach about that, and our coach came to talk to the teachers, kind of saying that she's coaching us and getting feedback, but reiterating why we're doing this, and the energy came back to our teachers. It's not, we got to get past that we have to do something differently because people are telling us to do something differently. We're doing things differently to help our kids learn and succeed. And so I think some of that messaging came back on Friday, that people were excited about this process and not like, oh, it's another thing that we have to do because it's the new trend. This is what we're doing because teaching reading is the right thing to do the right way.
Number 4, working through our MTSS process and establishing our teams and just working through that process with our different teachers. So we have developed our math, ELA, and behavior team and have had several meetings and they've gone very well in terms of continuing to improve.
What we're learning is when you target a specific skill, things go down. So these are our behavior incidences throughout the past time. So we're starting in August, September, October,
Yep, you're
Yep,
right.
September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April. So this is March,
No,
sorry.
you were right. Earl.
So you'll see that our behavior referrals are going down a ton. Kids know that there's consequences, kids know what's gonna happen, and we're seeing that translate from our data. So, also feel like teachers are maybe getting a little bit more not reluctant, but I'm not gonna put that in. So I think there's a little bit of that, but rules are being set and,
Consistent consequences
There you go.
being implemented, yeah.
and so kids know they can get away with stuff.
So this was something that we started working on through our professional development and working with our grade level teams of having guarantees of ins and outs. So there's that vertical and horizontal alignment of our curriculum across the board, whether that's math or reading. And the grade level teams are working, and so in our upcoming professional development day, we're allocating time that they can work with the grade level above them, but then also they can work with the grade level below them to ensure that we have the ins and outs.
And our hour plan that all teachers get, that's sacred time. We started looking at our schedule and saying, why is this important? It's not just important for teachers to have an hour plan, but it's a time for collaboration, to work together. We actually have to tell them, you guys have to have some time in your own classrooms and not meet together as a grade level, because I think sometimes it's just a time just to talk. But giving themselves permission not to, but the collaboration, really, because we brought 4 buildings together, and I think the culture in our building is amazing. So using that time to work, to grow together has really been beneficial for not only our students, but for our staff as well.
Lastly, believing everybody succeeds, Beatrice Elementary School, believing everybody succeeds and putting kids first will help establish and make our Tier 1 strong, so.
The thing that we both have to remember every single day is habits weren't started in a year, and we're not gonna break them in a year, and we're not gonna change Rome in a year. And so as much as we want to say that things are drastically gonna change, I just had a conversation with a teacher, and they said how amazing what we've brought together and how we focus on education in a year is amazing. So we're excited to keep that going and keep growing. I think that's it.
Thank you.
No questions?
Do you anticipate any schedule adjustments?
Yes, we're looking at schedules, I think.
One of the things that we were looking at is, when we had to do some adjusting around our lunch times this year, it fiddled with our win time, and we wanna make sure that that win time is protected across the board and then it's untouched, so then we can allocate resources accordingly, to best support people, so I think that would be one of the big ones
And
that
our
we'd be
reading
looking
time will
at.
change because CKLA time is
Exactly.
expanded for our younger
K2,
kids.
yep,
So where are we gonna take that time? But knowing CKLA, I can never say that. There's a knowledge part, so that knowledge part helps take away from that social studies and science part. So how can we do that and not say we're meeting for we know 5, 6, 7-year-olds can't sit for 120 minutes to do anything. So how do you break that out throughout and still be, have fidelity to the program? It's something that we're gonna continue to work on because I think people have a hard time doing that. I know as a teacher, I had a very hard time doing that. So keeping everyone staying where we need to be with that. So yes, that's good about adding that and keeping win time so everyone has 30 minutes of uninterrupted time and getting all the supports in that 30 minutes that we can, which is something we started with last year and got changed quick.
Well, I just want to say, unless there are other questions, you guys have, your work this year has been phenomenal to watch. It's been fun to watch, and it's been exciting to see the effort that has been made to consciously bring 4 buildings, each with their own background, history, and story, together in the way that you have done that, and so thank you.
It's been fun.
For your work. It's been great to see.
thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll hear about the middle school strategic planning update.
Less than 10 minutes.
Thank you.
We saved there in just a
Yeah.
second.
Stewards.
This we can refer to.
I can't win. If I print it in black and white, I'll give it a hard time. All right, okay, so we've got two goals that we set out the school year to embark upon the, I'll click here, it's up on your page. So goal number one was maintain or reduce major minor behavior referrals from the 23-24 school year. The second one is create and refine a tiered intervention system for students that need additional academic support. So both of those align into our strategic plan. So what we'll do is give an overview of those two goals that we are sought out for the school year, and then we'll wrap up by talking about other strategic plan accomplishments that we have tackled this school year that are more of kind of a checkbox sort of feel. So turn it over to Craig for the first one.
We'll go ahead and talk about goal one a little bit here. So last year this year we've had 8 new staff members come in. So we had a lot of experience leaving the classroom from the previous year. So one of the main reasons our goal was to just focus on behavior. There's a lot of inexperienced teachers coming into those classrooms of teachers that had a lot of experience. So if you look at our current data right now, the black is from 23-24, that's for the whole school year. Currently, 24-25, the majors is at 79. Compared to last year, it was total for the year 109. So if you look at the trends and stuff, more than likely we'll probably come in under that or pretty close for the year. If you do look at the minors are higher than what they were previous, and they'll probably end up being higher, but we're decreasing the majors, the minors probably are looking a little higher. We look at this data continuously. It's interesting because we'll look at different grade levels, and our 8th and 6th grade are very similar at the lower tiers of them. Our 7th grade is a little higher, so we're looking at how we can help support 7th grade going to 8th grade next year. So that is goal one.
Okay, the second one is create and refine tiered intervention system for all students that need academic support. I kind of gauge this at, we're about 60%. We're in the MTSS process, as Mr. Ford had talked about when we're up here, of defining from a tier 1, what does every student need, and then tier 2, that 10 to 15% that needs additional support, and then tier 3, the 5-ish percent that need pretty extensive support. So a couple things that we've accomplished and things that we're doing moving forward in the 25-26 school year is next year we will have 4 reading teachers and 4 ELA teachers. So what that means is our students will have about 88 minutes-ish every day that's truly dedicated on the reading and writing piece. Whereas before, we were sandwiched into about 45 minutes, and then every other semester they would get another dose of reading. So the state, as you are all aware, has a goal of being proficient, 75% proficient by 2030. And so I feel like getting our students into the hands of our ELA reading teachers more every day is going to be a benefit for us. We did, the second bullet point, open up our math teachers from freeing them from a mentor in a study hall. And that was purposeful. We saw one of our need areas for students that are needing that reteaching. That tier 2 is the highest and most frequent is in math, because when they go around to other teachers, can you help me with this? Generally, no, I don't know how to do that. You're gonna have to see your math teacher. So we freed them up from having a homeroom class and then a study hall class, so that way they could use some of their data from in-classroom assessment, and then whether it's a state assessment to identify students they need to pull in and schedule regularly to give them those reteaching needs. So that's a new adjustment we pivoted on mid-year and we'll continue with. The last thing, this is something I'll mention here in a second as well. This school year with the transportation, not knowing where the flow of that would be, we did do some data tracking on when the bus gets to the middle school. So we shifted our bell schedule, and so something we'd like to do, and I think we're gonna move that. I don't wanna say that, speaking that term, but the bus does get to the middle school pretty quickly, which is good, is shifting back to an 8:15 to a 3:15 to allow the 30 minutes at the end of the day, where we have a captive audience of our students, time, so that way they can get into the classrooms of teachers if they are missing an assignment or need to retake a test or need simple reteaching of a lesson, things like that, where we lost that this year, and we could feel that with ending the day right at contract time, and so I think that will be a benefit for providing the time that students need. So those are a couple things that we've got in motion, and we'll continue to build our MTSS process aligned with that goal. So that's where we're at on goal number 2. So shifting over to other little check boxes of things that we feel as we look through the strategic plan of things that we accomplished. Strategy 1 is all about the infrastructure. So we updated 6 more cameras. If you guys didn't know, Mr. Stingles, underneath his desk is a rat's nest of cords. They're all coax cables. There's probably over 50 camera cords.
I've offered to spill water on it sometimes.
It's ugly, it's old, and anyway, where we're at is we've been kind of chipping away at some of those cameras and getting them digital. As with anything, that comes with a cost. So we've got now our most highly trafficked cameras that are digital, ones that are more clear and aren't required cabling that's sitting at his feet. So that's good news. 1.4, just kind of what have I talked to? We took the bus data of arrival times in the morning, and our custodian actually is one that I delegated that to, and he happily did that. Kept a little spreadsheet of times when our last bus would get there, and I feel confident that we're able to move our school time up with the traffic flow to get that back end of the day back with our students to be able to work with our teachers. So. Strategy 2, 2.1, it talks about building community partnerships for poverty students. Is we partnered with the Coats for Kids program. They've donated over $700 worth of coats for our students in need this year. So that's been a positive for us. 2.2, social emotional learning. We have, as with the other schools in the district, completed the DESA screener to make sure we are providing those supports for students that are in need of more behavioral or social needs, and be able to target and identify students that need more support in that way. So,
And
Craig's
then
going to talk about this.
to talk a little bit about strategy 3, I talked a little bit about losing 8 staff members last year. Currently, for recruit, retain, and develop high quality staff, currently we've had 5 open positions this year. We have currently hired an ELA teacher, a counselor, and a SPED position. And right now, our openings are in science and then a family and consumer science opening. So we're feel pretty excited that we've hired 3 highly qualified people to come in, but we still have 2 open positions going forward. So that's where we're at on the recruiting highly qualified staff.
Any questions?
In the chart is showing the behavioral infractions. That's the number of infractions, not the number of students involved.
That's the number of infractions.
Yeah, I
Yep.
was just wondering if you can comment on the number of students.
You know what, I know for minors, and I don't know the exact numbers, but I think the amount of students is about less than 50% of the students of the middle school. And if you look at the majors, that's between, I'm estimating, but I think, kind of keep track of that, like, not the exact number, but somewhere between 15 to 25 students make up the 79 of those, so. roughly.
We could go, if you want the
We have
correct
that.
answer, we have that, we could find it. And that is something, we do meet monthly, we break down by grade, by day of the week, by time, and just as the elementary had talked about, try to pinpoint where our most frequent times or most frequent behaviors, and then target those to reteach or intervene in whatever capacity we need to. And so I think with the number for minors, we will be higher this year than last year, but I think some of that is directly related to, losing a couple hundred years of experience of teaching and replacing with some new teachers, so.
It's also interesting to look at the data on the days that those infractions happen. Like, it's usually Monday and Fridays are the lowest, and then Wednesdays, even with that added time, or not the highest, usually it's about Thursday, that's the highest for minor and major infractions overall, so just being able to look at that data.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And like with the other group, thank you for all the work you do. Great to see improvement.
Dr. Nielsen will now talk about the science curriculum.
Okay, wonderful. Well, at the middle school, we have reached our 7-year cycle with Amplify, and so we were needing to look at what next. So, middle school teachers have spent this past year looking at different resources. They started with 6 different resources, and then they narrowed it down to 3. They looked a lot deeper at OpenSciEd, MOSAMAC, and Amplify. So Amplify is what we currently use for our science program, so they looked at that and kind of tried to figure out what they liked about it, what they didn't like about it, what was working, what was not working. After narrowing it down, they spent time at ESU 5 studying OpenSciEd because ESU 5 has that. Then they also piloted a MOSAMAC unit, and so they were able to get kids' perspective, they were able to get their perspective too as they were piloting it. One of the things that they noticed as they looked at all of the programs is they are all very similar. They're all very similar in their reaching of the science standards and how they reach the science standards and how they teach the science standards. So all of them have the 3-dimensional science standards that our Nebraska state standards align with. So as you look at the 3-dimensional science standards, we are looking at, they have to include a disciplinary core idea, a cross-cutting concept, and a science and engineering practice. So as we look at the programs, they have to have those pieces in order to meet the state standards and in order to help the kids get to where they need to get to. So currently we know we have 75% of our students that are proficient on our science test, on the INSCAD science test, which we are doing our job. The program that we currently have is doing its job. So we asked ourselves the question of, do we want to switch? Do we keep with our current program? If these other 2 programs are very similar, do we keep with our current program? Our teachers looked at it and they determined that we were going to move forward with Amplify. So what we are going to do is we're going to look at a 3-year quote with Amplify rather than a 7-year, because Amplify will be going through, and in 3 years, they will be reviewing their curriculum materials. So we want to make sure that when they go through and review again, that we are still aligned and we still like what we see. So what we are looking at is, the quote would be $33,075. And we would look at renewing for another 3 years with the Amplify program. And then during the 3rd year, we would reevaluate again.
How much time is spent on hands-on activities? And I don't mean watching videos. I mean actually hands-on.
I would say that there is probably about a 70-30% piece that, and part of it is the research that happens within, so it might be even more 60-40, because there's a lot of, when you go through the program, there's a lot of experiential pieces that are there too, so you do see some labs and simulations.
Give me an example of something they do in.
So there is one, last week, their 6th grade, we're looking at the sunlight and how heat from the sun will impact the climate we're living, and so they're doing heat lamps. So they did a little hands-on, I don't know what phenomenon was. I was just in there for about 5 minutes, but a hands-on prediction of what they thought the climate would be based on the direct and indirect sunlight. So they're using heat lamps for something, but then they'd also take that into Amplify, and they have what's called a simulation inside there, which is just a digital version of a lab. So they take the hands-on piece that they walk through, and then they would do the digital component with a partner, and they'd collaborate on what they thought the outcome would be. And then there's a lot of, what I like about Amplify right now, there's a lot of collaboration and a lot of discussion with students. So you walk in our science rooms, they're always posing a question of, what phenomenon will happen in this lesson. And so a lot of peer-to-peer debate and discussion. So there is a fair amount of things to what you're asking in regard to reading, in regard to online simulation. But they do mix in a good amount of hands-on. I can't say it's every day, but it's, I would say 70-30, 75-25 would probably be a fair number.
Do we provide them with financial resources to get the materials for hands-on?
We've got
Absolutely.
closets of stuff, of science materials, yeah.
Yeah, I've seen lots of simulations, experiments, animated type things, so they can try different levels, numbers, and multiple tests.
Yeah, there'll be digestive units where they're trying to feel like why a student is feeling crummy, and they start putting different things into the student's body, and then it'll affect their sleep, and it'll affect their energy and things like that. And so there's a lot of those sort of hands-on components within the program. So
I think, yeah, the other part is doing physical experiments where you've got the equipment.
That's what
where
I'm
they can
talking
actually try things and compare to how much learning you get. Yeah, the simulated type things can tell you a lot. They just pack a lot of information into a small amount of time and give the students an opportunity to try things. And the question is whether that keeps them motivated, and whether, when the time comes that they can actually do the real experiments, design things. Like, when I hear about things like this, I think of, like, coming up this Saturday, I'll be judging a science fair over in Nebraska City. I do that every year. That's a lot of fun. Students are doing lots of fascinating things, and that's with the real hands-on experiments.
yep. And one of the phenomenons that science has already proven, which is water on Mars, that's kind of an outdated version of a component within the curriculum. They do a hands-on couple days that they'll spend outside taking water that's siphoned, and then they'll run it through sand or different landforms to see what water will do after it's gone through, and then try to compare it to what the land features of Mars look like. Could we make a direct comparison to what that looks like and what water looks like as it runs through sand as far as the landform? So they do a fair amount, but a lot is simulated on the computer. Yeah.
I guess I would prefer to see more hands-on and less. I don't know if I think they sometimes think they're just watching a TikTok video, and they're not.
Genuinely learning.
Yeah.
by
Not that I would have
yeah,
ever done that, but I think that can be a problem.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Hakey, for that extra information.
Next, we'll talk about bus transportation and first student contract and task cost.
So in front of you, you have an executive summary, titled Transportation Costs for the Committee of the Whole meeting tonight. And basically what that's broken down into is some different categories. The first one being where we are, kind of a history of Beatrice Public Schools in relationship to what our transportation fees are, because ultimately at the end of this, that's what we're going to be asking you to discuss. So you can see that in 2020, 2021, we were at $130. Today, 24, 25, we are at $160 fee, which basically, if you break that out monthly, everything's by 10, because the bus company bills us in a 10-month cycle. So we are, you know, that's roughly $13 per month to $16 a month where we're at. So literally, in the past 5 years, we've only increased our bus rates $3 per month, or $30 per year. So nothing, comparatively speaking, to what the actual increases have been for us as a district over the course of that time, and we're gonna cover that in a second. But you can see that the next category, section 2, is the amount of riders that we have. So 514 AM riders, or in the morning riders, and 534 afternoon riders. Those numbers do not include special education. We have 93 students that pay to ride, and you can see over the course of time what our increases have been annual, or will be. So this year we saw an 11% increase. On the basis of the contracts that we have in front of, that we will be talking about in front of you, there's an 11% increase for 25-26, a 10% increase for 26-27, and then in the agreement consecutively over a 5-year term, which would take us clear through 29-30, there's a 7.2% increase annually. And that's just for the cost of keeping up. Included in what we're about to talk about is also 2 new buses each year that the busing company will be buying to provide for us, that are 77 passenger buses, which is really what we need based on the number of riders we have. So the next thing that we want to talk about before we get you to what our discussion point is what a couple of other comparative districts charge when it comes to riding the bus. Now, keep in mind, these are school districts, and I'm not gonna mention their names, but these are similar sized school districts that have a strong, that have a transportation component that comes from within town, or under the state statute of 4 miles or more, okay? So we have one Class B school with 2,268 students. Their fee is $823 per year, or $82 a month, okay? Other notes over there, each additional ride is $576. Another Class B school, one way annually is $260 a month, or $260 per year, $26 per month. A semester is $150, and monthly is $40. So there's options for parents to pay. Round trip, annual bus pass is $455, semester $250, monthly $70. So when you take those costs in that section of what these 2 comparable size districts operate at, or what they charge, you can see that we are way under what they are charging, okay? So now that brings us to other area schools, and not to name those, but just to say other area schools. A lot of our surrounding schools do not charge, and the reason for that is because they are predominantly rural-based schools, or their students are coming from 4 miles or over, which according to state statute 79-611 says you have to provide transportation for those kiddos, or pay mileage. So there is an option out there, okay? Essentially, what we have is 2 quotes from First Student that we have been talking to them about. We want to get this approved at the April board meeting. That's why we're talking about it to you tonight, because we want to be able to change the handbooks, start that registration process, get all those things ready to go ahead of time, knowing that we need to redo our contract anyway. Our contract is over with them at this point. So the difference between BPS and other similar districts is basically $29 to $66 a month when we look at what they charge. Your options as a board, okay? You can eliminate for transportation services for anyone that lives less than 4 miles away from school. Okay, so you could do away with transportation and rely on parents to transport them. Or your second option is looking at these two quotes that they have in front of you. They have a 3-year quote and a 5-year quote. On the basis of that is look at what we're being charged and say, okay, we know we're not going to recoup everything that we're expending. That's not what our goal is, but we do need to probably increase our rates. So what did we come up with when we started looking at it? And that is what's on that section there. When you look at next year on a 3-year contract, our charge for the entire year of busing would be $773,590 annually. That's $77,359 a month for 13 routes. So everything's based on 13 routes. Or $5,950, $5,951 per route per month. So that's on a 3-year contract. Now, if we extend out 5 years, because what the bus company obviously wants to do is they want to secure us for a longer period of time, they give us a discounted rate for that. And on a 5-year basis, that price is $632,380 annually for the 13 routes, or $5,633 a route per month. So our recommendation to you is that on the basis of these two quotes, that it makes sense to go with the 5-year pricing. We save a little bit of money that way. But it comes down to needing to increase what we are charging for bus services, okay? What we're charging riders. So we have, what we're asking is that you consider, our recommendation is you consider a rate increase to $250 for the first rider, or $25 a month for next year, 25-26 school year. Each additional rider would be $125, or $12.50 a month. For 26-27, the price would increase to $350 for a first rider, or $35 a month. Each additional rider would be $175. And 27-28 school year, the price would be $400 for the first rider, or $40 a month, $200 each additional rider after that. These increases would give the district $23,250 for the year, with the current number paid to ride students, so that's at that, using that 93 that we currently have. The route costs are $56,336 per year, or $5,634 per month. It's a lot of numbers.
And so, just so everybody knows, if you're on free and reduced, you don't have to pay special ed.
Do all districts do that? Do all districts provide, if you have busing, you provide it for free for people that are free and reduced?
I can't say all districts do. I can say that's been our practice.
We used to probably about 6 years ago, 7 years ago, we used to have parents provide additional documentation. So you had to provide SNAP assistance, Medicaid, TAMP. You had to provide one of those pieces, and then we would waive your cost. If you couldn't provide one of those pieces, then we would not waive it at that point in time. So we just switched it though and just made it much easier to document. If you filled out the free or reduced lunch application and it was determined that you qualified, we then just switched it to that. So that is the change we made about 6 years ago.
And Eric, for the special ed piece, it's only if they qualify in their IEP, so it's just under 100 students that qualify for transportation.
So as you look at that top number for your, on the contracts, you also need to add in the Lyft bus because we do have a lift bus that runs, and then you need to add in the early childhood midday routes too. So you're looking at increasing the 773 by probably 120,000 to 896,000, and then 848,000 for the 5-year.
Can I ask what percentage at other schools pay? I mean, we're having 18%, only 18% of our students are currently paying. So what's that percentage like at other districts?
I don't know, we'd have to call them and see, yeah. James?
Our previous district, my previous district I was working in, we didn't provide transportation for under 4 miles. And so then you were just transporting the kiddos that are 4 miles or further out. We had 2 designated pickup spots in town that we knew were coming from free and reduced areas, so those kids obviously weren't paying anything. But I would say a lot of districts would be similar to Cozad, where they wouldn't bus kids in town. 4 miles are out, they'd bus them, but in town, I would say most districts would be that way, that they would not bus.
And that's an
Kids.
option you have.
I suppose another potential option would be is, just as James was saying, is you have some hubs, right?
Right.
And you cut down on those number of routes. And so if you're riding the bus, you're at whatever location for pickup.
But for a parent that works, if they've got a small child, like preschool or kindergartner, getting him, they still gotta have a way to get him to the hub.
Right.
Correct.
The workaround that we did on that was that was a requirement, that a grandparent or a trusted adult for anybody under 1st grade, there had to be an adult supervising the kids and an adult picking the kids up. Otherwise, the kids would get brought back to school. So that was one of the ways that we worked around that, because we were wanting to make sure that kids weren't getting dropped off and then scattering to the wind, so.
Well, and then I think about children whose parents go to work before the time school starts, but they're dropped off at a sitter, and then the bus stops at the sitter. What happens in those cases?
The sitter would be interested in them.
But if there's no busing, they can't leave the other children in their care to take them to the hub. So then what happens?
It wouldn't be great. And maybe this comparison isn't great. There was only one daycare in Cozad, and that was one of the designated drop-off points. So, I don't know if there's several daycares in Beatrice, that maybe that could be some of the hubs that are considered. But if you have 13 routes going, might be able to spread that out.
I'd be curious in figuring out what percent of other districts, what their charge, if we're unusual or usual.
On the number that pay.
Yeah, yeah.
I also think about just the delivery and return from the schools themselves, their transportation system, the road systems, compare that to different school districts, because if you don't have sufficient traffic capacity, then you'd have an advantage having more kids bused, because you get more kids on a bus than you do with individual cars. So wondering how much that
But
would
it comes at a
factor.
cost.
Yeah. Yeah. Impact.
I guess I worry that, are we going to increase the fee for people who are just over the free and reduced line? You know, I don't know how we can tell that, but that would be, it would make it difficult,
Yeah.
more, very difficult. I don't know. I'm just curious about those things.
I think unfortunately, obviously with, anything, costs are going up, and I see no reason how we could not rate the fee.
Right, if we're
Especially
gonna
for-
continue to
yeah,
bus.
Especially where we're at.
I mean, I think we have to ask ourselves, is that a service that is of the most necessity?
Agreed. We can dig in and do a little research and bring it back to you. By no means do we have about it at the April board meeting, and
Mhm.
then we can make a decision. Okay?
Thank you.
Yep,
Now we're gonna talk about administrator and classified staff salaries.
we are. So, in front of you, there should be also an executive summary on, what we're targeting for salary increases for 25-26 school year. As you know, the negotiations committee has finalized the negotiations package for teachers, or for certified staff, and that was approved at the last board meeting. So when you look at the categories that we have and the overall cost to the budget and what's negotiated for next year, or impact on the budget for next year, certified staff, that negotiated package totals $636,363. So the next probably largest group of individuals that we talk about in our budgetary process and planning for are the classified staff. And so when we talk about classified staff, one of the things that our goal has been, and in meeting strategic goal number 3 is recruiting, hiring, and retaining highly qualified staff, and that's in all categories. So basically, what we are proposing for classified staff for the coming year is a total package increase of $218,157. And what that breaks out to be is making sure that we meet Initiative 433, which is $15 per hour minimum wage increase. We will accomplish that goal. So our lowest paying starting wage will be $15.05 per hour. So we'll be 5 cents higher than the Initiative 433 said. The average over the past 5 years is 3.56. Because of trying to meet this goal, we would be at a 5.37% total package increase. We made some minor revisions to certain position maximum step payouts within the classified staff salary schedule. The service step years do remain, so if they stay with us for 16 years, they get a 2.5% bump, 21 years a 5% bump, and 26 years a 7.5% bump, and 31 years a 10% bump. So we recommend keeping that, and we recommend keeping the attendance incentive that we put in last year, that for an additional day of pay for those that meet an attendance rate requirement tied to their employment hours. Max of 1 per semester is outlined in the classified handbook. So essentially, a 5.37% total package increase for classified staff that has a $218,157 impact on the budget. Along with that, then, we bumped down to talk about our other contracted individuals. There's 8 people in the district that are considered other contracted, who run supervisory or quasi-supervisory roles with an employment agreement. In other words, they're not certified staff, they're not classified staff, they have a little bit different job description, so they're other contracted individuals.
And what's an example of that?
An example would be school psychologists.
Okay.
And we would,
Rhonda,
yeah,
maintenance.
maintenance supervisor, food supervisor, so on and so forth. So they're not administrators, but they're in supervisory roles or quasi-supervisory roles. Their increase would amount to 2.84% salary increase, or $17,712 overall budget impact. And then for administrators, we have a required teaching. The requirements for this is they have a teaching administrative certificate and/or advanced degree. We address their salaries that are not at the midpoint of their array. So just like we have to in the Court of Industrial Relations, we have a midpoint for certified teachers between the 98 to 102%. We try and apply that same thing to administrators and get them in the middle of where they're at. So if they're not, we adjust that accordingly to try and get them to the midpoint. And that after all that shakes out, we're looking at a 1.38% or $21,425 impact on the budget. So, with all of this, what we'd be asking for is a grand total budget impact next year, salary increases of $893,657. And we would be asking you to approve that at the April meeting, so Jackie Boymeyer can do everything she needs to do through the Blue Cross Blue Shield health insurance enrollment process and get it ready to go.
And April would just be the three,
Yeah,
they've already approved the certified.
yeah, certified you've already approved, so it's classified, other contracted, and administrator increases. Any questions? Okay,
Thank you.
yep.
Since there's no public here, I don't think there's gonna be any public comments. Now, we're gonna need to go into executive session to discuss personnel for the protection of public interest and/or to prevent the needless injury to the reputation of individual and for a strategy session with respect to a possible real estate purchase. Do I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education of District 15 enter into executive session to prevent the needless injury of the reputation of an individual and for a strategy session with respect to a possible real estate purchase, and also to include within this executive session Mr. Voigt, Mr. Ford, and Beth.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. We'll go into executive session, we're gonna go over in that little room, or we have